Good evening. Welcome to our first Monday Night Live.
I was going to say Friday Live, but that would be wrong already.
That would be be a faux pas to start.
The live formerly known as the Friday Live. Yeah.
We are now Monday, 6 p.m. live. This is going to be a regular slot.
Yeah.
Moving it from a Friday lunchtime. After the weekend's golf, you've got a bit of a fix. Now we want to carry it on into the week. So we thought we'd dive in on a Monday, recover what's gone on over the weekend, and talk about what's to come. So,
well, at week for it, I think, with obviously major golf coming up this week, depending on where you want to start, I was probably going to jump on something else we're going to talk about later. Then, but I guess with what's gone, Jason Day winning,
amazing.
Is it 5 years since he won? I think it's 5 years since he won.
At least, probably. Got interesting stories about Jason, so carry on.
Yeah, I think for someone who's, I think known as one of the good guys, seems to be university liked, but so many injury problems, so many the dizziness spells, there's so many documented problems that he's had. I think to come back and win, and not a small tournament either, really impressive. Very
much so. If you've got questions, please feel free to fire them over. We're streaming on 2 channels this evening, double streaming. You want to see? We have turned into a TV set here, all thanks to James, the drums guy.
James' idea, he loves it. Absolutely loves the toys and everything going on.
So we've got my channel, Intelligent Golf Performance, and we've got the YouTube channel that is obviously Precision Golf. James is monitoring both of those channels, and any questions coming in on either one, whether it be golf equipment, whether it be golf coaching, bit of rehab, sports rehab, fitness, anything. But getting back to the world of golf, but getting back to Jason, as you say, I mean, from someone that went to world #1 and then fell off the perch, it was really came to the forefront. I mean, I first ran into Jason Day when I was in my early 20s. I was down in Australia. He was training on the AIS in Victoria, and he was a big character, big player back then, and he obviously carried that onto the tour in the Mark Leishman era as well. Some great players, great area to grow up learning their game, strong players, good win players, tight lines.
Yeah, he's always been good at the Open Championship.
It has to be really good at short game down in Australia, and I wasn't surprised that he then went on to bigger and better things. I think that there was that transition period, obviously worked with his coach. There was a bit of a father figure, mentor, got some injuries, always had some back problems in the vertigo. There's a lot going on there.
Was Chambers Bay, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. He had to pull out, and that's obviously very upsetting. It puts you on the back foot, a big player, then having to pull out through injury and then other bits and pieces. It's unsettling for someone on the top of his game, and the ripple effects can go on for years. And arguably, this is probably a bit like Ricky Fowler, which it'd be nice to touch on him in a minute. See that evolution of 2 golfers that have really found their feet. Ricky, you can't hold in the same regard, I don't think, as Jason Day. He hasn't got to world #1.
Hasn't been like the nearly man.
Very much so. Whereas Jason has, won majors, been world #1, and then falling off the perch. To see him come back and win, it's going to be super insightful to see where he goes on from there.
And our form going into a major that he's won before. So, what actually, I mean, for Jason Day, the one thing I think that I'm going to throw this to a coaching question that stands out with him is his chipping technique. And it's something that's very, I won't say unique to him. It's a real characteristic that you see that actually it's him. So, is that something that he's just won? Everyone's going to be looking at his technique and what can you learn from this? That is it something that people should look to use as a general technique? You think? 'Cause it's quite different. It's very dead arm. It's very kind of just back through, very very stiff. One could say stiff-wristed. Is that something that people should be looking at and saying, is there something that I can use from it? Or is it something you should look at and go, okay, this works for him, but there are general principles that might not for other people?
I'm going to be outspoken. I couldn't dislike it more.
Are you on?
Yes. I am on, they're both coming up. Yeah? Are they not Oh, okay, fine. I'll be outspoken.
I did ask this because I knew you would be.
I couldn't dislike Jason Day's chipping technique more.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because there's been this real drive to deaden the arms with a lot of coaching now, taking wrist set out of it. You look at the best short game artists that we've seen over many, many years. It's been more on the set side, setting the golf club. You know, thinking about using the levers, because when you're using levers, effectively you're creating an angle of attack into the golf ball. And I think as soon as you start to take out the wrist set, if you're playing on the PGA Tour every week when the ball's sitting up beautifully, okay.
I was going to say, would there be any link? You talked about the turf and Victoria and things. That's actually really quite tight.
Yeah, absolutely.
So does that make it almost a bit surprising? Is that something that you think is he gone to post going on?
Let's put that there. It might be yours.
Post going on PGA Tour and the different lies there, or is that something? Do you think has he always done that?
Yeah, I didn't know him intimately enough in the early days. The biggest thought I have when I think about Jason Day is him being on the putting green smoking a big fat cigar at, you know, at 16, 18 years old. So he certainly was a bigger than life character. But I think you go to Victoria and you need to create loft, you need to create speed, all of those things with dead wrists and dead arms you're not doing. You look at the likes of the Sevis of the world when you're talking about setting the golf club and creating speed down at the bottom with loft and spin. Exactly. You wouldn't advise that, but someone that, and I don't know, he might have had chipping woes and it might have developed from there, but someone that has been so locked out and so dead armed, I really worry about that, because I think it for the most guys out there that are playing on UK soil, I think it's a real difficult technique to get right and create the right strike. So no, I'm not a fan in any way, shape or form.
The ball sits up on some of those PGA Tours. Okay, they get tight lies, but here the ball sits down a little bit more. I mean, when we were out in Greece, this was one of the kind of comments that came into it, and when Roger was chipping, Roger Chapman, he felt he kept it very quiet and dead, but the reality was, and I know for me, I feel like I want to quieten off, but I know I have a little bit of, I hold a chip yesterday, so, but the reality is that there is still some one about his lag and flow and wrist hinge.
I think when you're thinking about short game, and I did a video on my channel on short game, on chipping specifically, and we've got the light end, we've got the heavy end. You can move the light end very quickly. You know, when you're thinking about hitting chip shots, you're getting a bit nervy. The handle can move ever so quickly, and the head doesn't move with it. So when you think about Jason Day talking about locking out his wrists and he's trying to make everything move together, it certainly takes away some of the flow to a chip shot. When you think about the best golfers in the world, they've got so much nerve. You know, you think about the shots that we've seen over the years, people winning the Masters, delicate bunker shots coming down the stretch. Their nerve is unprecedented compared to the also-rans. And I think as soon as you start to try to go, oh, look how dead wristed he is and how good it is. But then if you were to line up 50 of the world's best, he's an outlier.
The softness in the hands, isn't it?
He's an outlier. So I don't think we can particularly think that that's the way forwards. I think the thing from the insights I've had from on the grapevine, it's been more about his back. You know, he's worked very early in his career trying to hold his pelvis off, try to create torsion through his upper body. And when we talk about that, we're talking about keeping the knees straight, the hips straight, and turning his chest against his lower half. Very old school. Turn against your lower half. Not really how we see golf being played. You only have to look at someone like Jordan Spieth now, who's really trying to work on some hip depth, really trying to get his right hip back, and we see a lot more rounded swings. As soon as you start to see that differential between rotation and arm lift, I think that's when things start to get a little bit out of
potentially where some of the injuries have come from.
Absolutely.
That twisting, that heavy torsion.
No doubt, no doubt. So who do you fancy for the PGA Championship this week?
PGA, I mean, Oak Hill, known for Ryder Cup 95. Which makes it even more disappointing that my internet's gone down this week and I've got to try and stream it somehow. I think it's a classic course. I would imagine around there the rough's pretty penal. It's a classic US Open course, really. I think that's a proper all-round game, isn't it?
Well, while you think about that,
you've got to be looking at the form players. You've got to be looking at someone like Rahm is clearly always going to be up there. Scheffler is coming into some form. The reason why it's hard to look away from the guys at the top of the tree because one, it's a major. The courses are set up tough. Two, it's a big, great course, and the great courses always bring the cream to the top. It's rare. Okay, the US PGA has delivered some quirky winners over the years, but rarely on the classic Sean McKeel at Oak Hill in the past. But you had a backup of players below him that were right up there, the great players. It's hard to pick someone. So Spieth's coming into a bit of form. He seems to be playing a little bit better.
I think you look at the way Jason Day won. He shot 5 under the back 9. That's someone that's run through the finish line. He hasn't won for 5 years. It was a low scoring week. 23 under wins it.
62s and 3s and 4s.
I think you'd do well to look past him.
Well, Dustin won the LIV event. Cam Smith shot 61 the last round.
Siwoo Kim had a good week last week as well, and Scotty Scheffler had a good week as well. He's top 5. So a lot of good players playing a lot of good golf, and it feels like they're playing a lot more golf as well. Cam Smith's doing well. Brooks Koepka's come back into form. I think it almost feels like we've moved out of that era of the Masters. Those people will win. The US PGA, those people win. It's almost become, these guys are so adept at the intricacies of the various golf courses. They're now able to turn up and go, right, what's the examination paper this week?
I think the bit that marks it out a bit was more the conditions, not obviously the course. Someone like Augusta, I think you can pick based on the conditions. You can pick who's going to do well. If it's windy, it's an iron player because it's about positioning your approach shot under the flag. And that when Garcia won, the weather was bad. It was windy. You had Rose, Garcia, Casey, great ball striker, Matsuyama, Oosthuizen. All the great iron players are up there, and I think the Masters is one, and maybe the Open are ones that you can kind of pick a little bit more for those because of the course conditions, the course style, the air conditions. So the only thing I don't know is what the weather's going to be like this week. But
it'll be an interesting one to see. If you've got any thoughts on that,
let us know.
It sounds like a question's coming from young James.
There certainly is. Ian Linfoot, hi guys. Driver strike is low toe. Any advice to get this more centred equipment or swing?
Low toe.
I mean, equipment-wise, there could be a number of things. If it's low toe, then that would suggest you're not getting full extension and not getting down through the ball. Or you're standing too far away. That's the other bit of it. But equipment-wise, if it's a little light, you can kind of flip through it, and the weight doesn't extend you and pull you out. So I'd be looking at, is the swing weight or is the shaft weight a little bit light? And potentially, if that head style, if the weight's a little far forward, that can make it feel low on the face. So a lower CG head, possibly. And these are very big, definitely maybe elements from an equipment point of view. But those would be two, without seeing someone swing, the two things that would spring to my mind of where I'd look at first.
From a coaching perspective, first of all, have a look at the bend you see on the golf ball. If your ball is bending excessively when you do strike it in any one particular direction, understand that wherever that ball is bending towards, your ball or your club is trying to swing in the opposite direction. So if you're a hooker of the golf ball, bend left, you'll be trying to swing the club out to the right. And if the ball is bending right, you're going to try and swing the club to the left. So therefore, because you're hitting it a long way out the toe, your club is trying to swing a long way in an opposite direction. My advice to you to fix the strike is fix the bend. Quit the bend, try to do something, whatever it is, if it's a slice or a hook, do something to appease that. Go looking for, on YouTube, go looking for instructional help that will cure the bend, and then your golf swing will rebalance itself, and then you'll start to find the centre again. That's probably the most foolproof way of me fixing you without going down a guesstimation route. Fix the bend when you strike it, then you'll be able to realign the path and get it a bit straighter. That would be my answer to that. Anything else, James, while we're here?
Yep. there's two. There's one equipment based, but
Let's go with that one.
okay. Norwegian Warhound, I believe.
That's a
you're
great
tuning-
name.
Yeah, I think-
Norwegian
I
Warhound.
believe he's
Thank you for
tuning in
watching.
from North America, I think. But yeah, let us know in the comments field. Hi guys, was wondering if you could tell me the characteristics of the Ping Tour 65 shaft that I've always gotten along with. Don't know much. What is comparable in the aftermarket?
Okay, so Tour 65 shaft, the Tour series is it's designed around the stiffer profile. The Altas are the little bit lighter, a little higher torque, a little softer tip, and the Tour series, as it suggests, for a stronger swing. So they're generally a little bit stronger in the butt section. All of the Ping shafts play, well, so technically they get higher balance, but actually what Ping do is they put a little plug, thank you, and they put a little plug in the top of the shaft in order to create that bit of a counterbalance. So the shaft structure itself isn't necessarily that high balance point, but they put a back weight in. But stable through the mid and upper section, designed around a little lower torque, lower spins. There's around a 60, oh, I say around, like I'm guessing. It's a 66, 67 gram shaft. Used to be made by UST, I believe still is. But very, very stable. They play very butt stiff. Aftermarket wise,
It blows my mind that you have. I mean, we're looking here. If you've watched the channel, we're looking at hundreds of shafts up here, and he's got them all in his noggin up there. Why aren't you grey? For heaven's sake, carry on. Sorry.
It's apparently it's fair. So let me think. Kind of comparable ones aftermarket. It's not just for men. I'm going to go with, well, for one that's not too counterbalanced, the VRTX Blue in the 70, because it actually plays just under 70. That might be slightly heavier, 66, 67 gram. A lot of the counterbalance ones are going to feel a little softer butt section. Maybe the Project that has this Blue 70, again a little heavier. Kyoshi HB, Devotion HB 65 actually, that's a bit more counterbalanced as a shaft, but that's not a million miles off. Because the shaft isn't counterweighted and they put a back weight in, actually the counterbalance aftermarket shafts are actually going to swing a little bit lighter. So, but to feel that stable with that balance point, actually it's a pretty good shaft for that. So,
What was the? Was there a technical question?
There is, yeah. Stevie C, got the shanks. Sorry to hear that, Stevie. Pro had me doing the usual drills, played with a scratch player who said I had excessive face rotation with an in to out swing path and to use TrackMan, but Pro said it won't help.
Interesting. So you got a good player and you got a coach. Both are good players. One's got a coaching head, one's got a playing head. This is an issue that you hear a lot. The problem with golf coaching is that I think there's so few people that just do coaching now, and there are more guys and girls out there that are doing a bit of everything. I think at that point it becomes difficult to have the depth of experience when you're not doing it full time as you would do someone that is doing it full time. The shanks ultimately is the heel of the golf club is closer to the ball at strike than it was at the start. I see more heel strikes coming from inside path lines than outside path lines. The best way to cure the heel strike is, first of all, and I shall demonstrate this, is to first of all get your club face and close it 45 degrees and then grip the golf club. And then when you set up to the golf ball, you're now going to see that the toe of the golf club is much closer to the ball than the heel of the golf club. Then pop a ball on the outside, this one here, pop a ball on the outside, set yourself up and make some swings. And then as soon as you start making some swings, the ball will start to bend to the left. And this is for you in particular. When the ball then starts bending to the left, do I need to move that a little bit further away? Should be okay?
Should be okay then,
yeah. When you then start to see the ball bending to the left and you've made a good contact, if you then try to make the ball go straighter with the club face closed 45 degrees and you hit it out the neck because of the path, you then know that your path is too much inside out. If you then know that your path is too much inside out because the ball wants to curve to the left, then open your club face up, do exactly the same drill. When you then make a swing and you see the ball pop out to the right, oh, I didn't want to hit the outside ball. Then when you see the ball pop out to the right, and then you bring the ball back in, so you've now got the face 45 degrees open, now shift your path back in the same direction. If you then, I shouldn't be using so much loft. If you then catch the ball out in the middle of the club face, you know that the fix is about making your club face coming back in more open than more closed. Someone can open the face up so much that they close it on the way through to square it up and hit a hook, which then pushes their path out to the right. So it could, but equally, you could be opening it up so much and you're bringing it back in super open. So it could be either. But the chances are that your face rotation is making the path shift either too far right or too far left, and hopefully you'll understand that drill, practicing a few shots with the face shut 45 degrees and then practicing a few shots with the face open 45 degrees will start to give you a sense of where your path needs to be to make it go straight, and that should realign your contact. Hopefully that'll help.
Nearly handed you less loft.
I know. It wasn't the best. I've just put a 50 degree out there. Shit, I don't want to take a 7-iron out. Any other questions, Joe?
Yeah, one for you, Simon. Niels, thanks for joining us again. What would be the symptoms of too heavy iron shafts?
So I can take his and
Yeah,
I'll show you
sure.
exactly.
There you go, mine.
So yeah, his are heavier than mine. So too heavy iron shafts. There are a couple of main things. One, so that what happens if you play too heavy is, as you go to fire, the club doesn't come with you, and then you've got to somehow, if you just keep going with the swing, the club stays behind, and then you're either going to bottom out or you've got to pull up to come out of it. So you can do one of a few things. If I just swing and try and go through with it, the club goes there and I bottom out. So heavy as a strike is one thing that you're likely to see. The compensation after that is, because you know you're going to bottom out down there, is you're going to go up and you're going to stand out of it. You're going to extend that way, because obviously you're not going to do that. So what tends to happen is you're then going to come out of it and high block it, and then the next reaction to that is then you don't want to let the face open, so you fetch it around and you hook it around. So basically dispersion pattern really suffers. So the short answer is anything can happen, but the symptom that you're really going to notice is that the miss is more likely to be heavy than thin, because you want to do that and bottom out. But it's going to be a heave. So if you tend to find if you can't stay in posture and stay balanced and turn through and the club come with you, what's going to happen is it's going to get behind and you're going to come out. So body, club. That's what you're looking for with too heavy. But strike, face control, shot pattern, posture change is all compensations for having to heave the club through.
I mean, go out in the back garden, swing a lead pipe, and then go and swing a bit of bamboo.
Yeah.
You feel the lead pipe, it'll feel all out of sequence, and it'll be super simple to keep it all sequenced up with the bamboo. But the reality is you can't swing with a bit of bamboo because the ball won't go very far. And that's the whole point of what we do, right?
Yeah.
It's that knowing that frequency of whether someone's just tipped too heavy or tipped too light, and it's finding that.
And
frequency.
often it's going to look kind of quick and snatchy, because if everything's happening out of sync, then it's a kind of a snap and a kind of catch up and a catapult. Whereas if it's all working in sync together, then you've got loads of time. It looks like you've got loads of time. It's like every sport, a batsman in cricket, if you're balanced and timing everything well, then everything's flowing and working through a stable core, you stay in posture. If you get out of sync, or it's a bit like the old prep school cricket bag where you get an SS Jumbo and it weighed a ton, you just couldn't get the thing through. So everything just looks untidy and you're going to come out of balance. If the weight of the club's good, you can stay in balance and shift it with pace and finish stable.
And the thing with the golf swing is that you could have 10 people stand on the mat and they've all got their own ideas of how they're trying to use themselves to hit the golf ball. You could have a super fit, super strong guy that doesn't load the club properly, but just swings the way he swings. And then you could get someone in that's never been in the gym in their life, load the shaft harder, and could actually create more force and load on the club than the guy that's been in the gym, because they have two different concepts on how they swing the golf club. But the fitter's got to fit that, right? You're helping them. You're fitting the DNA of that golfer, and I think that's when the club could be too heavy for you, but you're not using yourself very well, and the club could be too light because you're using yourself equally in the wrong manner. Prime
example, actually, a client of yours, chap we just had in, fitted irons and woods about 3 years ago. He's gone through a load of lessons and actually we needing to change because he's now moving more efficiently, so he's very inside. We had to go not really lightweight, but not heavy head, because it was already behind him and he needed to get it through. So he then had to go a mid-spin head to retain a bit of flight in case it knuckled. And we're now going to go a stronger balance, not necessarily heavier in the irons, but a stronger balance in the tips. He's now got the shaft out in front of him more, so we need the weight to hit against. And the driver, we've now gone a lower spin in driving forward because he's now leaving the face square and flighting up. So there's you can really see that kind of progression in someone's action. He's worked really hard in his technique over the years, and he's not necessarily got kind of bigger and stronger, but he's using the mass of the club more efficiently, so we need a bit more to hit against. So that kind of thing's useful from a coaching point. It's great to see that progression over years as well.
And that's the beauty with TrackMan, because all of a sudden you have someone come in that this is where you were 3 years ago, and this is where you are now. The clubs do have to progress with that technical change. Any other questions, James?
Plenty. There's a few more. Stu, hi guys. Well, this is Stu, not Stu. Hi guys, how do I work out length and lie for a player? Is it basically trial and error?
No, absolutely not. I mean, length. I mean, there are kind of principles you'd look to. A standard length, 37.5-inch 6-iron. Generally, it's for someone, roughly speaking, 5'8", 5'10". You've got to then look at how someone stands the ball, the leg length proportions, arm length proportions. If you get someone, 6'4", we call it a Tyrannosaurus Rex, long legs, short arms, then obviously you've got to go a lot longer than someone like Retief Gersten, who's got arms as long as our legs and at 6'2" and played a standard length. But your kind of base marks are going to be a kind of average height person. Standard length is designed for them because it's your kind of baseline. Is someone shorter, taller? Do they stand upright? Do they bend over more? You're looking at, does someone need a shorter shaft length to get strike quality? Can they cope with the full length for their height? Do they need, there are lots of things that go into the melting pot. You're looking at kind of baseline on physiology and stature, how they stand to the ball, and then ball striking ability. So you'd err shorter for someone who just needs help finding the middle of the face. There's no point having a 5-iron, 4-iron at full length when actually you could taper it down a little bit and help them find the club face. Lie is purely you do not measure lie around a dress because that's a static position. Lie is a dynamic impact position. So if you've got someone with a neutral shot pattern, doesn't hit big shot shapes, so you're not looking to compensate for anything, then it is a dynamic position through impact. So we use a chalk line on the ball, which leaves a line on the face, because that's a true measure of lie. All of the launch bonds and systems have a dynamic lie measurement. Frankly, I don't trust any of them, because the only thing that matters is what is that impact position like? And the only way you can tell that for certain is vertical line the ball, what's the mark on the face? Even though lie boards and things, you put a bit of tape on the bottom, people back off them. So you only get a true measure of someone just hitting a ball naturally. If you're looking to gear against a hook, then you can degree and a half flatter if someone's strongly shaping it, and same for a fade, you go a little more upright because the loft gears it the opposite way. So if you go upright, the face looks a little bit, for a right hander, a little bit left, and can reduce a bit of fade. It does not affect how the sole contacts the ground, and therefore how the toe is held in turf or whips through. If you've gone to that length, then you've gone way too far on lie. So lie is purely dynamic at impact, and then length you're assessing base physical stature, ball striking ability, your general sort of playing ability as to whether shorter helps them get a better performance or not. But the baseline's always kind of base stature and posture.
Very good.
What player's iron from any OEM would in theory benefit a shallow angle of attack the best? These are +2 handicap.
Well, there's a secondary part to that. Is what's your launch? Are you a low ball hitter or a high ball hitter? If you're a low ball hitter, I mean, you want a player's iron would be something like an I-230. If you want to flight it a bit more, it's still a player's iron. It's got a little bit of face tech, but you're looking for something that's got centre of gravity lower because you've got to get that into the bottom of the ball. If you're someone that hits down on it, you need a higher centre of gravity because if you play low CG, you're going to chop underneath it. So for a retaining a bit of launch and spin, probably an I-230 or maybe even T100. If you're someone who flights it higher, then T100S, MP223. Let's think. I mean, actually, if you wanted to retain, if you're sort of a lower ball hitter, an Apex Pro, that doesn't spin it too much either. There are quite a lot of heads now that have tungsten in the sole that help someone who's a little bit shallower through. Some of it's going to be bounce oriented, so it depends how much shaft lean, what you're looking for from trajectory, but there are a number of heads now that will help. I just can't be definite because I'd need to know what your launch and spin are to be more definite on that.
I think that's when people talk about shallow, shaft lean, again, 5 people might see shallow as inside out. Another 5 people might see shallow as no angle of attack. Some people think shaft lean makes you steep, but you can have shaft lean and strike up on it. You can have no shaft lean and hit down on it. Yeah. So the 3 dimensions of a golf swing really takes some getting your head around. We have come full circle. We've gone beyond. It's a line inside out. It's steep, arms high, chopped down. It just doesn't work that way. And I think that's when someone comes in for a fitting, right? I mean, they see the data points. You know what you're seeing and what you're seeing with ball flight characteristics. You know what you're working with, and the same with myself. You're trying to help their game. I mean, it's slightly different for yourself because invariably when people are coming for a fitting, they look back there and they go, whoa, over to you, right? Yeah. But of course, when someone comes in for a golf lesson, they might have watched a few YouTube videos and they feel like they've got a bit of a school of golf in their own brain, and it's a slightly different. So I think TrackMan has really helped a lot, confused a lot, and left a few in the middle.
But my job's easier than yours because that's black and white. There's no interpretation. Well, there is interpretation required in terms of making sure you're looking at the data the right way. For us as the job, but from a player's point of view, it's either lower, higher, longer, shorter, better flight, worse flight, and I know I know some of the questions I can see behind your eyes going, oh God, why is he like, just do the drills? Some of the questions I come out with trying to work out feel to interpret, and we all feel things differently. So how I would put into practice something that you want me to do versus the next person might feel the same move totally differently. That I call it a language. You've got to be multilingual, particularly with what you do, to interpret it and explain it in a way that the golfer can understand it, but actually then put it into practice. And I think that's one of the things. I mean, there's a great video, Tiger Woods and Scotty Scheffler talking about, and I don't know how much Tiger's messing with Scheffler in this one. Yeah. But Tiger, when he practices, just no divots. When he's hitting it really well, no divots. So you'd look at Tiger on the range, the bit he practices out of and go, well, he's thinned everything. Now, clearly, he's actually flushed everything. Yeah. And then you go, well, is he flipping at it? Well, no, he's still got shaft lean. He's still delivering dynamic loft.
And so that's a really cool one.
I thought that would follow on from that last one. In terms of, that's partly why I said I'd need to know what your ball flight is, because if you're shallow and flushing it like Tiger is, you don't need to worry about anything. No. If you're shallow and thinning it or producing poor launch dynamics, then we've got to worry about something.
Because I think when Tiger was talking about it, it was a really interesting one, wasn't it?
That look on Scotty's face going,
what?
No, but you take a divot, right?
Yeah.
You must take a divot, right?
And so everyone's understanding is, well, if you're hitting down, you're definitely taking a divot. Now, I'm setting myself up for a fall here. I'm going to try and hit down 6, 7, 8, but I'm not going to take any divot with the ground at all, right? So ball's in usual position, and then I'm going to create some shaft lean, 8.8 degrees down, and I made no contact with the ground. Yeah. Whereas some people would see that 8.8 degrees down would create loads of divot. Well, Simon could attest to the fact that I didn't make any angle of any contact with the floor
at
all.
Number here. Yeah, and so actually, low point distance, 7 inches after impact.
Yeah. And so now I can hit down 8 degrees, and then I'm going to make low point come where the golf ball is. So now that'll be down. We heard way more Matt. I'm 9 degrees down, and I heard Matt.
Yeah, and it'll still be after, but it's not going to be anywhere near as much. Yeah, it's 4 or 5 inches after.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's much closer. To
absolutely, and I think that's the bit that, that in itself, that demonstration of 8 and 9 down. The first one, we were not making any contact with the turf.
Yeah.
And then the next one was 9 down, and we heard way more turf.
And if that was turf, then
we'd have fallen in it.
It would have been like Jesper Parnevik. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that's the people's. When you talk to people about angle of attack or any number of detail in the golf swing, they just have their own perception and concept, and I think that's when, as you say, it's slightly easier for yourselves because they've turned up with their golf game and you're not trying to change it. You're just trying to give them a different weapon to make it go straighter and nicer for them. From my, booth upstairs, I've got to ask the right questions to find out where their head's at, to then give them a direction. It's fascinating from that, and TrackMan really has given us that insight more than ever, and what can be or can't be. You felt that, but you didn't actually do that.
Yeah,
and I think that's the bit.
So it's the feel and real bit. The feel and fact. Yeah. So for us, it's a case of knowing if someone's. I think that the things that. And we would talk briefly about one of the things to talk about in here is actually what as fitters, what are we looking for from people when they actually come into the fitting bay, and actually so I think for me it's a case of someone knowing, one, what are you doing with your swing? Are you working on something? Because I need to know. Yeah. Because if you're changing those swing dynamics or going to be changing them or working on something with a coach, then case in point in terms of face angles Gentleman had it earlier on. He's changed his launch dynamics. Yeah. So actually with a driver, we've had to go down. Well, actually not necessarily down much in loft because it was already on a low loft anyway, but a totally different spin profile. Yeah. So if I know where someone's trending with their swing, I can factor that into an end game. Yeah. And then sometimes actually what you set the equipment can help someone make the swing changes because it's not going to work unless they do what they need to do. Yeah. I think knowing if there's a specific goal from the equipment point, not necessarily understanding what their equipment's doing, that's my job to do, but to saying, if there's a particular shot on their course that they just haven't got that they need, is there a gap in the bag that needs filling, like a definite direction, that always helps, because again we can help strategize the bag and the set makeup around that, and actually sometimes not. One of the things that we don't need someone to, this is why we fit indoors, we do not want you to adapt yourself to what we're giving you. Like when we're testing out the different options, we just want you to swing. Yeah. It's the result, the shot that you see there and you see out on the course is the result of everything coming together. So when you get a player that comes in and stands there and goes, I just need to change this in the swing. And the answer is, don't, because that doesn't help me. That's putting something on that isn't what you do normally. So, because it's function, it's about how you move, what muscle groups do you use, how do you develop that speed in the swing? Because I can give you a tool that will help you develop it efficiently as long as you're doing what comes naturally. So if you fit outdoors, you get wind off the left, and the player's going to react to try to make the flight. We all do it subconsciously. That's why in here, it's a little bit, you're taking any outside interference away. You're just getting a golfer and a swing and a timing and how they move, and then we can make the tools complement that. Yeah,
and I think that's a essential point. It's like standing someone up there and working on a stroke, putting, and then giving them a right to left putt. Depending on where their alignment is, they'll start to react and change their stroke right. In the same way, they stand out here with no wind, they can make neutral swings and you get a real honest reflection, and that can be used because when you see them hit those shots, it's like, right, now I need to bottle up what that feels like of standing there just doing my thing with not reacting to what I'm looking at as a whole, and wind and light and all that kind of stuff. So there's something to be really gained in just standing there, making a pass
you just
at
get the true move. And actually you also see who can really make instinctive changes. Yeah. So you will see, you get a shot where someone kind of rips face left, shuts it down, hits a big old hook because of a change I've made with the clubs, then there are going to be players who are that are incredibly instinctive of those changes. So the next one will then go right. You'll see it with coaching where there are players that can make a big change and players that struggle to make a small change. And I think that's just how there's a we've got the feel aspect, but some players just have the ability to shift their swings a long way, and others feel like they shift it a long way and it moves half a degree. And that also, from a fitting insight, helps me understand how the player plays on the course a little as well. I know James sort of said there's a question.
Nick West. Hi guys, is there a difference in spin numbers with an iron when hitting off fairway or inside on a mat? I've heard people say grass spins more than a mat and vice versa.
There is. So currently it's a bit like your putting. There isn't a artificial mat that will react exactly like turf. But yeah, turf, because of the way the ball works and sort of pinches against the base and skids a little bit onto it, launches slightly lower but does spin slightly more. Now actually this is the same turf that Titleist use in their performance centre at Woburn. A mat will launch very slightly higher and spin very slightly less. So that's where some of the TrackMan optimised numbers are a little lower launch and higher spin than we would see off a mat. So it's actually, when you get the end result, it actually those normalise off. But yes, the answer is a little more launch and a little less spin off a mat. Partly it tends to strike slightly higher up the face. So that's part of the reason why.
And just on that point, I mean, people say, does it spin more? Does it spin less? I mean, if you created a golf swing with 2 degrees more closed face to path or 2 degrees more open face to path, that will have such a bigger difference on your spin number than hitting off of a mat or hitting on the. When people talk about will it impact my fit? It's like, honestly, it would be so low.
You get far bigger variables, lies on course, turf types, grass conditions. And actually, part of it, it's a control. We know exactly from years worth of using these things exactly what a good window of flight was and what we're looking for from certain angle of attacks and swing speeds and things like that. We know what we're looking for from it. Of course. And that's something that there are good launch and spin numbers from here that will produce very slightly different numbers off turf, but that's something that we've already factored into what we're looking for. So,
and I think we've got all of this data and this info, and sometimes it's like, oh, that's 25 revs more than the last one. It's like, oh man, come on. I mean, that can come from being a groove too high or groove too low.
Way more. I think that the biggest thing I would say from anyone getting fitted, if you are is actually range ball fittings. That's something that if you're looking to be seriously fit, don't go anywhere that uses a range ball. Mid irons they can normalise out pretty well, but driver, the ball speed variable, the construction variables, they are a low grade golf ball. They're produced absolutely much more cheaply and mass oriented than a premium aftermarket ball. Even some of the distance balls, they're much less consistency. So, and particularly if you're having a wedge fitting, if someone puts a range ball down in front of you, walk away, because that cover is so much firmer, it's so much less elastic. It's going to launch up with no spin because there's no grip on the face. So you cannot judge trajectory, you can't judge distance, you can't judge control. So that would be something that far more worried about a mat versus turf. That's massively key, particularly when you get to wedges.
James, anything else while we're here?
Bhupinder, how are you doing? Question relating to head and swing weight. Are there iron brands that have interchangeable weights similar to putters and drivers so that swings changing with instruction and training can be compensated for? Yeah,
I mean, PXG and Ping are the two that spring to mind. Ironically, design, PXG got a couple of the top Ping designers. So Ping have a little tungsten weight in the, I'm going to get a couple of heads to show, a little tungsten weight in the toe. PXG use some screw-in weights at the back of the head.
Let us know where you're watching from. Always good to hear. How
far? That gentleman was from Iowa, and it's lunchtime.
Well, happy lunchtime. Have a cup of tea
having
from
a
us.
nice snack. So Ping actually have a little tungsten weight that goes down the bottom of the hosel, but they also have a toe weight. So those go from 1-2 grams up to 12-13 grams. So quite a very, very big variation. PXG have that central weight. So technically those outside ones are weights as well, but that's the one that varies by from 2.5 grams again up to about 10-11 grams. Mizuno make a lighter head for going longer than standard, but it's the whole frame of the head's lighter. TaylorMade have a little tungsten port that you can take out for going longer or lighter, and you can drop in a couple of different weights, but that's internal. If you're anything like me, it's just a little bit of lead tape. Most of the time you're looking at a couple of grams. You're not, if you're having to change the head weight by more than 3-4 grams, then either you've been doing a heavy amount of working out in the gym, or something fundamental, it's unlikely you're going to be moving it more than a couple of grams, simply because unless you've gone through a Nick Faldo style rework of your swing, the way you move and develop your swing isn't going to change that much. It sounds an incredibly small amount of weight, but it's a huge amount of weight as far as the momentum acceleration goes. So,
anything else, James?
Let's have a look. Yeah, going back to Peter Cantor, played yesterday, and some friends playing single figures say that they've never hit it so short, and as they get older, can a change of shaft help regain length? P.S. Don't help them as I'm out driving them.
Well, I
Good
must say
evening,
for
Peter.
Peter, that is a man whose swing has definitely improved over the years.
You know what that is?
I think I'm going to
Good coaching.
yeah, good coaching and good fitting, yeah.
And good fitting.
But I think he commented on a drive hit on the 10th at Hankley recently. That I think was just, that's what it feels like to be at this point. But the answer is shaft weight. You can probably pick up a few miles an hour of club speed. So maybe you're looking at, if it's purely on weight, 3 to 5 miles an hour ball speed, unless you're playing something horribly unsuitable. I mean, unfortunately, I have a secondary question: is do they do any exercise at all? Because the one thing, once you get over, I'm 43, it's only a downward trend. So the two elements are any element of, when I mean exercise, I don't just mean walk around a golf course. Any element of exercise, mobility. You lose massive amounts of mobility, and you've heard that Stuart's worked incredibly hard on his fitness over the last few years, much harder than I do. I am very lucky. I'm blessed with mobility. I've got a decent amount of and you end up with a short, tight swing that hits it nowhere. That's probably the biggest element of the losing distance.
Bear with me. If you're watching, guys, we've had a couple of the cameras freeze and it looks like I'm a zombie. So bear with me. I'm just going to try and refresh one of the cameras. Give me a moment.
This is where we need a little bit.
Might all still be on though.
Yeah, this is where we need just a little bit of background music. Just comes in. You can't fight the age of time, right? So if you see a decline in club speed, there's two ways you can go. Either get a lighter club, you might have a chance of swinging it a bit
should help.
Should help. Or you need to lose a bit of poundage and you need to get yourself in the gym. They're the three options really.
Whether it's something like swimming, bit of Pilates, yoga.
Anything, right?
A lot of the players now. I mean, you look at I guess the work we've done with Roger, Monty. Gary Orr, who gets some therapeutic work from Stuart upstairs. The guys and girls getting into the seniors tour. Trish Johnson we work with into the sort of the ladies seniors element. It is range of motion really suffers, and especially if you've had a 20, 30 years sat at a desk. You've got to do something to counter that, and I think it's the inconvenient truth of it. Really, no one really do we want to have to get, not just one to have to do exercise, but one it just helps, and two, it just helps. So it's
point one and point B
to maintain, and really once you get beyond 50, it's maintaining. I know Terry's playing amateur seniors golf. He said once you get over 50, you're not going to get stronger anymore, and not unless you start from a very low base. But you've got to work as hard as you did in your 40s to get stronger, just to maintain. And I think that is the truth of it.
Any more questions, young James?
Let's have a look.
Who do you think's going to win this week? I know you said the form players just whilst James
Yeah,
was thinking of questions.
I really like Brooks. I like Brooks. He had a good run at the last major. I think that'll have hurt him.
Yeah.
But I think the fire's back in the belly. So I think he's going to be a tough force to reckon this next
and
week.
he's always good around tough courses as well. When he was
Yeah.
that force to be reckoned with,
Yeah.
any major he just lifted.
And
Don't panic.
nothing to see here. What do you? What have been your thoughts? We chatted briefly before we came on air on LIV Golf. My thoughts are that they're gaining some serious momentum.
I thought pre-Masters, I thought it's all gone quiet.
Yeah.
I must admit, I thought, oh, wow, this has really stalled because there was no noise about all the PGA Tour tournaments that were on were getting the right winners. They were at great venues. You had the Players, you had Bay Hill.
Yeah.
They had.
And the start of the year as well, the events that you want to see, and then there's that kind of lull, isn't there? It'd be some majors, but the in-between tournaments, which I suppose what they've worked on and trying to bolster. Yeah, they start to. It's like, but
it felt like the PGA Tour had all the momentum. At that point.
It did.
And then the Masters happened.
Yeah.
And then it changed because then all of a sudden, for those that champion the PGA Tour, well, the inconvenient truth is that some of the world's best players are not are on LIV.
Yeah.
And how much better was the Masters for having everyone back together? Ignore where they all play.
Yeah.
It was great having Rahm and Koepka in the last round fighting it out, and it wasn't just they were 3 out of the top 6.
Yeah.
You think proportions of the amount of the LIV players playing, it's high proportion compared to other tour players playing. And I think we kind of, if you step back and go, right, what do I want to see as a golf fan? I want to see the best players playing together as regularly as possible. But I think that gave a massive shot in the arm for LIV. I think that Sunday goes, it validated it because they're not just, yes, they're playing no-cut events. Oh, look, the PGA Tour are going to do that as well.
Yeah.
But they're still playing. Look at the field. 61 in the last round, lost in the playoff. You've got Cam Smith and Dustin, and all these guys. Koepka, they're all that. It's building. It's definitely building a little bit. And I think. I just think the Master shows you've got to find a way of getting world ranking points to get these guys into the majors. That's the bit that I think, from a golf fan point of view, it's a long way off any kind of conjoining back.
Yeah.
Because I think this bit of momentum, like the Australia tournament, the amount of support they got out there.
It's amazing. That was as big as the Arizona event.
Yeah.
As big as the Arizona event. You look at the event just gone. When they're doing their interviews. I mean, the hooping and the hollering in the background, the music. There's a real vibe to it, which is look. It's not for everyone. And it's going to section off the people in the golfing world. But if you're talking about the sport, it's got to be a good thing, and hopefully, in time, it all the dust settles and everyone.
I get why it's raw at the moment, particularly actually not necessarily. I can understand why some of the players are raw about it, based on like in Europe, all the lawsuits and things like that. I can understand that. But
you could
the people at the top of them aren't necessarily that interested in growing the game.
But when we were seeing Rahm and Koepka going round, they were talking, they're having a giggle. It's like they were cool with each other, and I think that at the end of the day, that kind of it's more of a media drive to push this angst between everyone rather than necessarily there is an angst.
I think it feels like it. I think you saw Jason Kokrak and Jason Day on the range on, was it Monday or Tuesday? You're giggling away with one another.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, there have been a lot of words said, and I think some of that is heat of moment and the rawness of it, of the split. But look, I'm a golf fan. I just care about the good of the game moving forwards.
And the best players.
I think the whether they're true or not, but things like reports of a big sponsor being turned down for US Tour because they have Saudi links, you kind of go, well, there's got to be. I totally accept all the comments about the Saudis and some of the human rights aspects, but that goes across every industry, every sport. F1, tennis,
of course.
Football, World Cup in Qatar. I mean, look, golf isn't the only sport with this as an issue, but bottom line is, how can we make golf as a sport better? And actually getting the big players playing together on the biggest stage, that for me is important as number one.
Any more questions, James?
No new ones, no.
How are we doing for
can
time?
I just take this opportunity to say, if you're not subscribed, please do click that subscribe button right now whilst you're here. It takes you 2 seconds. It really helps us grow the channel, and we can't have this channel without you lovely people tuning in and answering questions. Tell your friends, tell your family, shout from the rooftops.
And of course,
mention us in forums. To do what it takes. We want to grow this channel and be the best.
And we nearly got it going tonight, but we've worked a way of getting Zoom integrated with this live.
You say we, I've had nothing to do
You've
with it.
had nothing.
I'm
It's
not
just we've got the video
cracked.
cracked, it's just the audio.
The audio. So what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to get you guys and girls to dial in to a Zoom call, and we're going to be able to bring you up on the screen, and we're going to be able to have a little interaction with you and hear your questions with you on screen, and maybe some thoughts on some golf swing tips or their equipment tips or anything.
And if
really.
in these bits as well, like there was a great email from someone recently, which I'll bring into one of the other ones about kind of shot types and club types and bits of the bag. Anything that you want included in these, if it's, let us know during the session, like we've done in the other lives. We're going, if you want to see something hit and see how it performs and us talk about it, that's what we want. We don't necessarily want us to script everything and do things. We want to do whatever you guys want us to do within reason.
The hook is off. It's an open
that
show.
can help. Anything that can help.
How are we doing for time, James? How much longer have we got?
4 minutes.
Beautiful.
Any jokes?
No, got no jokes. So
we're very serious.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice to just touch on the ladies event, LPGA Tour. Jin Young Ko won there with Minji Lee in second.
Yeah, I think so. So it was Minji won last year. Founders Cup. The Founders being I think it's 4 or 5 of some of the kind of the 4 bearers of the ladies tour. So it's dedicated to them, and I think kind of one of the bigger tournaments. So 'cause I was actually wondering, was it a major or not? But and I think Miss Ko has won 3 out of 5. I think of this tournament. She's certainly won a few of them recently.
And then on the DP World Tour, Simon Forstrom won, Jens Dan Tour second, and nice to see Torbjorn Olesen.
I was going to say, Torbjorn coming back. I mean, again was by his own indiscretion out in the wilderness, and then come back. And I think to come back into to have won, was it last year or year before? It feels like a while back. But, to have won already, shows what a quality player is.
And look, we're in May. And already people will be thinking about keeping their card. For the people out there watching, guys on tour making it their living, they've already had started at the back end of last year. They're 6-7 months into their season, and they'll be seeing where they are on the order of merit. If they're outside the 100, I mean, there's a few spots outside that to keep their card, but they'll be concerned. And someone like James Morrison had a good week last week, finished 7th. He's languishing down in some low numbers, 140 I think. You look at these kind of guys that have been out on tour for a while. Richie Ramsey had a win last year though, but Matthew Southgate, guys that Mike Lorenzo Vera, he's lost his card this year or last year, this year, so he'll be on invites. They're paddling.
It's such a big week.
You have a good week and it's a jolt in the arm. You win 30, 40, 50 grand. It can go a long way. You then get another invite because the top 10. Get an invite into next week. Then they hope to get another top 10 if they haven't got a status. So these are big weeks, and we're in May. And we're seeing
to get it done and get out of the way.
They've got loads of time. It's like playing with the bank's money. You get your card up. They'll all know roughly how much they've got to make. And then it's home and hose, and that's when you see kind of guys and girls kick on. So big weeks, when you're watching the DP World Tour, you're seeing these guys that have to have a big week to feel like they kick on.
And sometimes actually major weeks are an important week, because if you're not in the major, then there's a chance to have, you get a good week, and suddenly you can ramp up some of your own ranking points and get a foot up. And actually, comment on Belgium as a location. I mean, there's some great golf in Holland and Belgium. Amazing, like someone like the Surrey Heathland kind of golf out there, Colt designs, things like that. And I think it's there's some of these sort of venues that might look like Holland or Belgium might look like, what's golf like there? It's actually some of the classics. classic course designs are out there. I'm actually out at the end of this month playing in Belgium at Royal Waterloo. They've got a centenary event, and I've not played there myself, but some fascinating, brilliant golf out there.
Yeah, hopefully you get some good weather for it, because that's the only bit when you start to, even now, you'd probably be all right from now going onwards, but you just want good weather, don't you? We've been battling here.
It was nice yesterday.
Man,
it was nice being out, no matter how badly I played. It was nice just being out and getting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to show you the top of my arm.
Yeah.
But getting Battenberg-like top upper arm, but getting a bit of sun makes such a difference playing with the sun in your back.
Yeah, big
lovely.
time. Any more questions, James?
Just one more. S. Forbes, what are the best tips for having an indoor wedge fitting, and in your opinion, is having the same shaft as your irons in your wedges better or worse?
The answer to the second one is definitely maybe. There are some players who, and that isn't a flippant comment, because it is 80% of players will go slightly heavier, because when you're, if it's a full swing, you're creating a bigger move, more acceleration, faster acceleration, so the club's got to come with you. When you go to a finesse swing, there's less of that acceleration, so you're using the weight to drop the club into the back of the ball. So that's why you'll often go heavier, because you're using the mass differently. You don't need the club to come whistling with you. So you tend to find if someone gets the more someone pulls down on and gets a little bit kind of handle move, you need a bit more weight to drop the club down and in. If you're someone who's very quiet arms and more body turn, that's a strong chance you're going to play with a continuous shaft through into the wedges from the irons. So, but 75–80% of the time we're going 10% heavier in the wedges. Yeah. And indoor wedge fittings, again, as long as you've got the tools to do it with, you're looking at distance gaps, spin, bounce profiles. There are still obviously ways of looking at using the boards, looking at strike point on the sole. I think this is the thing, going back to what we were saying earlier, people go, oh, is it as good as outdoors? Well, you're still only testing in one set of conditions, and the variety, particularly in the UK, we play in year through, you can't test all those conditions even outdoors. So actually, as long as you're looking at the right component parts, the timing, the strike, and where that strike point on the sole comes to be able to gauge bounce, it's actually no negative to be indoors versus outdoors in the grand scheme of things.
Brilliant. Well, I think we've reached time, have we, James?
I think so.
Brilliant. Well, this has been a great opener. I think we might have a special guest next week. Stay tuned for that.
Is it Mark?
If you've liked tonight, make sure you hit the like and subscribe and share button, because as I say, we want to bring you loads more content.
I've got an animation for that, wait there.
Built. He's going to
gift king over there.
Gift king.
James loves animation.
Yeah.
Where is it?
And
don't worry.
we're going to make it really interactive the more we get the tech's up and running, but we want to get you really involved in these evenings, because I think Monday nights, the golf is over for a lot of people, over for the week, on the back of the weekend, and it'd be nice to extend that out for a Monday evening.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, big thanks to you.
And to you. It's nice to have nice to have just two of us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And
Three of us.
And James can come next week if he wants.
Yeah. Thanks to IT support over there. Without him, this doesn't happen.
Yeah,
literally.
Exactly.
So thank you to James.
Yeah.
Nearly didn't happen. The cameras went off about 10 minutes ago.
Well,
it's nearly a podcast.
Yes. Well, if you've enjoyed this one, hit the like, share, and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next week, 6 o'clock.
Great.
Make sure you're there.
Thanks for coming.